and welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Today, I wanted to talk about a tool that I was first introduced to as a very little girl that has served me well, but is something that I forgot about for a while and have recently started to play around with and apply to different areas of my life. Now, growing up, I experimented with a lot of different sports as a young kid, and it was around third grade or so that I first started gymnastics. And I very quickly fell in love, and this became my main sport. It wasn't long before I was involved in 15 to 20 hours a week of practice and meets on the weekends, and it just became my life and my identity. And gymnastics is a sport in which you, of course, need to practice the physical aspects of it over and over and over again, the skills and the routines, repetition after repetition, in order to build that muscle memory. But you also need to practice the mental aspect of the sport as well, in order to be able to perform under pressure in front of an audience at a meet on a 4-inch balance beam up in the air. And I will always remember and always be grateful for the coaches that first introduced me to the tool of visualization. We would end a long, rigorous practice where we would be doing our routines over and over and over again, and our muscles were exhausted. But then they would lie us all down on the floor and say, your muscles are exhausted, but you can still practice in your mind. And we would practice our routines over and over and over again in our mind. And this was a tool that I think served me well. It helped to prepare me through gymnastics. And it's something I kept with me all throughout my career, through different gyms, through my high school career as well. And I think it did contribute to some of my successes. And so it's a tool that I kept with me. And then a few years later, when I started competing in CrossFit, I implemented it there as well. And this was reinforced by the sports psychologist that I was working with at the time. He would have me mentally rehearse and practice for every event that I participated in. Everything from walking through the door to my warm-ups to walking out on the competition floor, every single aspect of that event, finishing, feeling the emotions of satisfaction and confidence and standing up on top of the podium. Every single part of that visualization played a role. He would even have me go back to certain events where I felt like I was in a flow state, and he would have me rehearse those over and over again in my mind so that I was used to being in a flow state and I would be able to find that familiar feeling again next time I was out on the competition floor. And so it served me well as an athlete once again when I was competing in CrossFit. But then I went on with my life and sort of forgot about this tool. But recently it came back into my awareness, and I had to ask myself, if I was using this when I was competing as an athlete, and if there are top level athletes using this all around the world, people like Michael Phelps or Conor McGregor, why isn't everybody using this tool to be just a little bit better at the things that are important to us, right? Whether it's being better at work or being better in our relationships or our hobbies. This is a tool that is free and anyone can use. And there's good research behind it too. There's a classic study where they asked subjects to practice a piano routine. And half of the group practiced this routine in their minds for 2 hours a day. The other group practiced it physically on the actual piano. And what they found were similar changes in both groups. And that the same areas of the brain, the same circuits were being strengthened, whether we're practicing mentally or physically. And so there's real science behind this too. Now, this is something I've started to implement in different areas of my life recently. And one I'll share with you is in going into big events or even small events, but where there are a lot of new people to meet. This is not my natural environment or habitat by any means. I am naturally an introvert. And so traditionally going into an event where I don't know a lot of people is not my cup of tea. You might have found me frantically searching the room for someone that I know that I can talk to, or maybe taking a beeline for the food or going to the bathroom more often than I really need to. But over the last few years, I've intentionally made an effort to get better at meeting new people and putting myself out there at events like this. It's uncomfortable, but I made the conscious decision that I wanted to not let my own insecurities get in the way of me meeting new people and bringing myself to these new experiences. And so I found that the more I practiced this and the more I put effort into it, the easier it became and the better that I became at it and the more confidence I gained. But I also find when I go into an event and I'm not being intentional, I really fall into that default mode. So there were a couple events I was at where I was in a rush to get there. I finally walk in the door, and without thinking about it, I'm kind of slinking into the background. And 10 to 15 minutes in, I realize, oh, wait, I want to bring my full self to this event. I want to put myself out there. I want to meet people. And then I start to engage more. But I thought, why don't I implement visualization? And so it's something I've done a few times where maybe it's the morning of, maybe it's right before walking into an event like this. I just visualize what it's going to feel like, right? Walking into a room with confidence, with a big smile on my face, shaking someone's hand, being excited to meet them, finding mutual connections, laughing with people, telling stories, feeling really connected and joyful and happy. Leaving that event feeling really satisfied, proud of myself, and having even made some new friends. And when I do that before I walk into the event, it really does become a reality. And it's so much more fun and it feels so much easier and more effortless. And so it's something I've started to incorporate in other areas of my life as well. Many days I'll start the day just by visualizing how I want this day to go in my ideal mind, in the ideal situation. And it doesn't always go that way, right? Life happens, things change, but I can guarantee you that my day is going to go a lot better than if I had woken up and visualized the worst case scenario. And how often do we spend so much time in our minds thinking about the worst case scenario, right? Thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the worries. And the more time we spend there, we're strengthening those circuits in our minds. And then those things start to become a reality. So I will challenge you for the next few minutes, just take a moment to think about something that's coming up in your life over the next few weeks or month. Something that maybe you're worried about, you're anxious about, you're nervous about. Maybe it is a big presentation at work. Maybe it is an uncomfortable conversation that you know you need to have with someone. Maybe it is a doctor's appointment that you know is coming up and you're just nervous about what the outcome might be. I would challenge you to take a few minutes and just visualize what is the best case scenario for how that situation may go. And take in all the senses. In that situation, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you hearing? What are you tasting? What are you smelling? How do you feel in your body? What emotions are coming up for you? When you're interacting with other people, how are they responding to you? And how are you walking out of that situation? Feeling happy, joyful, relieved, excited.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.